Hi there. My name is Robin Long, and welcome to the DIY column of the VokTalk newsletter, where we explore how to apply good andragogical practices in our real teaching lives. This month, April 2022, we're going to look at how we can use a mobile device, either a phone or an iPad or a tablet, in a lab situation to either assess student work or have the students assess their own work by using the camera function and taking either an image or a video and annotating directly that image or video. So, how do you use an image or a video to assess work or have students self assess their work? Well, the idea behind this is that having a mobile device today is pretty standard. I mean, there's almost nobody that doesn't have one, and most schools have tablets or iPads that are available. And we can use these devices for communication and entertainment purposes, but we can also use them to advance our trade. Right? We can look up information, we can verify information, we can document, we can organize our work, we can do a lot of things with them. So in a lab situation, we can use this camera function and get the students to take pictures or video of the work that they're doing. And then using the edit function on directly on the image, you can take that self-assessment grid that we've used in the past and we can assess the work immediately on the image and then save the image. If you're using a video, you can annotate a video, but you can't annotate it on your phone. You're going to have to do that in outside software. The workaround that is as you're filming, you can talk through your assessment. And then, so by doing this, so you're documenting your work, you're documenting your learning, and you're verifying what you know either as a teacher or what the student knows as a student, how it's meeting the criteria of what this project is, what this thing is that we're building. You can then save these videos or these images to a communal album or an album that's shared with the student and teacher, and you can use them to show student progress and pinpoint areas where the student needs to improve. So you can see here, this photo album was attached to our tracking tool that we used before, so the student can see their progression and the teacher can see the progression as well during the competency. So how is using a cell phone to self-assess your work or to assess student work, how is that a really good andragogical practice? There are really four main areas that we're going to look at here. What makes this really great is that we're really going after digital literacy. That's a huge chunk of this. It's active participation in the learning, both on the part of the student and on the part of the teacher. It makes the learning progression very visible, which is great with adult learners. And because we're dealing with results based and really applied learning, this is a great example of how to use both UDL and understanding by design in planning and executing your learning environment for your students. So UBD and UDL are two frameworks that teachers can use to guide them when they're planning the teaching and the learning. And UDL is Universal Design and Learning, and it's really about when the teachers are designing their courses to keep the learner's needs in mind and take into consideration the environment and as much flexibility as you can in the environment. And because here we're using some tech tools that allow the student to engage and to express their understanding of what they're doing in a few different ways. This is a really good example of UDL. And Understanding by Design is a framework that teachers can use where you start with a goal and you work backwards. So you start with first step is to establish the goal. The second step is then to establish, well, how are you going to measure that goal? What's the verification criteria? And then from that, create learning activities. So in this sense, because we're establishing the goal is the student has to be able to do something. And in order how they're going to prove that is they're going to go after these criteria and they're going to note it on the image. Then from there, I'm going to create the learning activity. So that's why those are the two big teaching philosophies that we're talking about here. Okay, so let's go ahead and make one. This is going to be an odd little video because really it's all about setting ourselves up so that we're able to do it in a lab environment. And it's got more to do with the preparation than it does with the actual tool, because it's the student doing the tool, ideally, the teacher wants to be able to do it, but everything has to be set up ahead of time. So let's go ahead and make one. Okay, so we have a few steps to do, but some of the steps we recognized from before. So step 1, 2, and 3, we've seen now a few times, and those are your macro planning, making sure you have a descriptive grid of the criteria that you're going after, and organizing what the learning focus of the day is. So if you want a little refresher on those 3 things, you can look at some of the videos from before. I think March and February 2022, I explained those in detail. This time around, we're going to start right with step 4, which is organizing the cloud-based file sharing. Okay, so for the cloud-based sharing, you have to think about what software you're going to use to allow the student to upload the image to the internet and then share the images, hopefully grouped together. So in this case, one of the ones I would recommend is Google Photos. It's a very easy way to upload and store images and then share them in groups. Google Photos always organizes photos by date, but you can create your own albums, and you can have one photograph can be in multiple albums. So if the students are going to use that on their cell phones, they're going to have to download the Google Photos app, or if you're using it on school tablets, you have to make sure that Google Photos app is installed. If you're using other software, and there are other ones out there, that's fine, but you have to consider what the cloud-based system that you're going to use is. So in this case, it's going to be Google Photos.
Okay, so at this point, you're going to want to set up the photo albums. Now, you can set them up ahead of time and invite the students so that when they start the course, the album's already set up and they upload their images. It's a little bit in the beginning a little bit trickier for them because you're going to have to make sure that they can access that photo album. Or you can have them at the beginning of the class set up a photo album and then share it with you. Either way will work. The second way is a little bit easier for the student. The first way is a little bit easier for the teacher. So to set up an album, what you're going to do is, so you're in your Google Photos and you're going to go to Albums here on the left-hand side. You are going to create an album and you're going to add a title. So in this case, we're going to say that our competency is competence number 1, which is all about food, which is not a real competency, but that's okay. And it is student name. Okay. Then you go ahead and at this point, there are no photos because the class hasn't started, but we're going to go ahead and share it with the student. So here we can go and we can find the student. We can share it directly with the student. And let's say it's this person is the student. Then they'll get a notification right away that this is their photo album. I can also go ahead and generate a link by clicking on the link here and letting other people add their images and photos and all that kind of stuff, copy the link, and I can either share it by email, put it in the classroom, or I could add it to my individual student tracking here, which I have access to. I go ahead and add the album here and apply, and now I have access to this album right here. Okay, so I can set them, like I said, I can set up the albums ahead of time, or I can set up the albums, have the students set it up at the beginning of class.
So step 5 in this activity would be to think about devices that you're using from the school. So if you do have to reserve an iPad or a tablet or something like that, think about that for your classes. For the rest of this video, we're going to focus on using a cell phone, because really there's no difference between using a tablet or a cell phone, but we're going to focus working on a cell phone. So step 6 then is guiding the students through what exactly you want them to do. Okay, so now the student is ready to actually put this into action. And so they have the work that they're going to do. They have the whatever task they have to complete. It's now finished. They're going to take an image of it. And they're going to self-assess their work. So they're going to open up the camera function on their phone. They're going to take a picture. And then on the camera roll of the phone, they open up the image. Once the image is open, at the top right, you see there's a markup tool. You open up the markup tool and, you can change the color. You can change the whether it's a crayon or a marker or whatever. It really doesn't matter. You can change the thickness. This is where they're going to take the self-assessment tool as well as the focus of the day's learning, and they're going to annotate directly on the image just using their finger and writing with their finger. So, for example, here on this image, I put an arrow towards the canal, and I said, "Oh, the canal isn't. It's too round shaped. It's not oval shaped enough." I'm going to say, "Oh, but the browning on the tart is really nice." And for example, oh, yeah, the student forgot the garnish. Whoops, I forgot to put the orange garnish on the plate. So, for example, so right away on this image, the student can self-assess, or if the teacher's doing it, the teacher can assess straight onto the image. Once you've done your self-assessment, then the image gets saved to the camera roll, and now you have to upload it to whatever cloud system you have in place. So in this case, we're using Google Photos. So all I would have to do is open up Google Photos and it would automatically upload. If it's not automatic, I'm going to have to open up the image and I'm going to have to send it. So using the upload button, I'm going to open up the upload button and I'm going to choose how I'm going to send it. If I'm going to send it to a specific app or a person or however I have it set up, that will be in the upload function. Once it's in the Google Photos, I can then go ahead and assign it to the shared album. Remember, those shared albums I set up ahead of time, or I get the student to set it up and share it with me. But I'm going to go ahead and go into Google Photos, add it to the shared album. Once it's in the shared album, the teacher will be able to see it. And so when I open up the shared albums, you can see there are all the images and there's the new image. Now, from the teacher's perspective, if I open up the album on my laptop, and remember from the previous video, we had linked in an album into that student tracking. So here I'm just opening it up from the student tracking. See, it opens up the album, and I can see all the images that the student has uploaded to their folder. And this is how I would use a cell phone or a tablet in the lab situation to get students to document their learning and self-assess directly on an image. So thanks for watching.